What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college basketball for the final time this season as we have the national championship on deck. We've had a great season. Thank you to anyone that has supported the channel along the way. We started this in February, had a lofty goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers, and because of you guys, we did that. So thank you to anyone that has subscribed to the channel, liked a video, left a comment, or even just watched for any length of time. I very much appreciate that. We have one more game left. It is a bittersweet one, but we had an awesome Final Four, and we have an awesome game on deck. The plan following this game is to turn our attention to college football. So if you are a fan, look for that. We'll have a lot of college football content throughout the summer and, of course, the college football season. Last thing, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. You must be 21 or older to play in most areas. We have an awesome showdown. Let's get right into it. Houston takes on Florida. This game has a 1.5-point spread in favor of Florida. The total in the game comes in at 140.5. We have no major injuries in the game. We'll start with resumes. So far, Florida is number 3 in the country in total power rankings. Houston is number 2. It was a funny Final Four because we had Duke number 1 and Auburn number 4, and that Final Four definitely lived up to expectations. But let's start with Florida. To get here, this team beat Norfolk State. They crushed them. UConn by 2 points. Maryland, they beat Texas Tech, and then they just knocked off Auburn. Overall, that puts them at 11-3 against the top 25. In addition to those wins in the tournament, they beat Tennessee twice, Auburn twice now with a regular season win, Alabama twice, Ole Miss, Missouri, Texas A&M, and then, of course, they added Maryland and Texas Tech. They only lost once outside the top 16. That came to Georgia, who was number 38. And that was a crazy game where Georgia got out to a big lead. But then you saw Florida come right back, had a chance to win at the end of the game. And a few missed free throws actually cost them a win. Otherwise, that's the only loss you could even make an argument is a little bit questionable. As for the tournament, it's been pretty up and down for Florida. This team has actually faced adversity through multiple rounds. We first saw it against UConn. They ended up gutting out a 2-point win. They had a game against Texas Tech where they arguably should have lost that contest. They were down by 10 points with 5.5 minutes left. They had ended up getting a greasy win in that game. They had 42 rebounds to Texas Tech's 35, and they shot way more free throws, 27-13. They also had an incredible free throw percentage in that game. They hit 25 of those 27, which is not typically a strength for Florida. But when you have these performances, that's how you end up in the finals. And they just had another one against Auburn. They trailed at halftime, but they won on the glass 39-30. And again, they shot 30 free throws to Auburn's 23. This was another sloppy game overall. Florida did turn the ball over 16 times. They've sort of been uncharacteristically loose with the ball in the tournament. Auburn had 14 in that game. So Auburn technically won the turnover battle by 2. But Auburn's were a lot more costly. I mean, Tahad Pettiford in that game was an absolute and utter disaster. And then on top of the boards, you just had a better shooting performance from Florida overall, which was largely just Walter Clayton going hero mode. He does that. They hit 38% of their threes to Auburn's 28%. But, I mean, there's been other blips of adversity. We mentioned the turnovers. They had 17 against Maryland. They still ended up with a double-digit win, but even that got competitive for a little bit. So it has not been all roses as Florida has made their way to the finals, but it seldom is. There's always a little bit of adversity for these teams, and Florida has answered the call. Top 5 team in the country, as most power rating sources will indicate. Houston, however, fits this bill just as Florida does. They're the number 2 team in the country right now. To get here, they beat SIU Edwardsville by 38 points. Then they had perhaps the toughest second-round matchup of any one seed. I would argue that. Beat Gonzaga. Then they knocked off Purdue by 2 points, slaughtered Tennessee, and, of course, the come-from-behind win in the final minute of the game against Duke to win by 3. And overall, this is an incredible body of work just like Florida's. They went 10-3 against the top 25, beat Kansas twice, Arizona twice, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Gonzaga, Purdue, Tennessee, and then Duke. They only have one loss outside the top 25 all year that came in overtime to San Diego State, and on that, they have 4 losses overall. 3 of them were in overtime, none of them by more than 5 points. Just a phenomenal body of work for Houston. And as far as the tournament resume compared to Florida's, they definitely have not faced as much adversity. Basically, a lot of these wins could have been by more points. Gonzaga, that ends up being a 5-point win. They had that game in check throughout most of the contest, and it got closer at the end, but still, Houston had done too much damage for Gonzaga to overcome. The Purdue game, it was a 2-point win, but when you break down everything that happened in that game, Purdue never led by more than 4 points. That 4-point lead was in the first 2 minutes of the game. So even though the final score is very close, that wasn't exactly the closest game. And then, of course, the most adversity they faced in the Final Four against Duke. Duke had a 97% post-game win expectancy. I saw this stat. Duke is the only team in the history of the tournament to have a higher field goal percentage, more free throws, more assists, fewer turnovers, and more steals to ever lose a game. Teams that have won all those categories were 335-0 until last night. But as usual, when you see stats like that, they do require context because Houston won a couple other very key statistical categories. They out-rebounded Duke 42-31. 18 of those rebounds came on the offensive end, leading to second chance points for Houston. Houston also shot 45.5% from three. A lot of that LJ Cryer, an absolute flamethrower from three, but that made up for some 2-point woes, a common problem for Houston. They only hit 33% of their twos. With that said, that's how you get the second chance opportunities on the glass. So those are the resumes for our two teams. Heading into this game, it is a clash of styles. Houston's played in a number of these in the tournament. They are 360th in tempo. Florida is 63rd. Houston has been a team excellent at slowing down their opponents. The only time I saw them struggle with this was against Arizona in the regular season, and then Houston ended up correcting that at halftime and beating the Wildcats. But they're very effective at this and slowing the game down. They did so against Duke last night. As for some of the other stylistics, Florida has the height advantage. They do in most contests. They're 36th in effective height, 8th in rebounding. Houston comes in 257th in effective height, 24th in rebounding. Florida has an elite front court, and it's very deep. And Houston's, they're deep. They have three bodies they'll use in Tugler, Francis, and Roberts. All of them are 6'8". But at this point, I think we've had enough of a sample of Houston to know this team's just not going to get out-rebounded, even by the biggest teams in the country. They faced Duke and out-rebounded them by 11. And it's more than just that. We've seen them play other tall teams, too, just off the top of my head. Arizona and Gonzaga had no problem with the height with either of those teams. With Houston coming in 257th in height, it no longer worries me, especially with the three bodies they can throw at that problem. And that doesn't even include a guy like Terrence Arsenault, who's a good rebounder. If he needs to play, he's getting about 10 to 15 minutes a game. I think you could basically chalk this up as a neutral matchup because Houston is so effective on the glass. Shooting-wise, Houston's 88th in effective field goal percent, 290th inside, and first in three-point percent. However, they're only 285th in three-point rate. This is a common problem for this team. You have elite three-point shooters across the board. LJ Cryer's at 43%. Milos Uzan's at 44%. Emmanuel Sharp's at 41.5%. They just shoot a lot of inefficient two-pointers, and they did so last night. You had Juwan Roberts going 4-14, I believe it was, from two. Joseph Tugler, he's another inefficient player, but they're so good on the offensive boards that it doesn't matter always what their efficiency is. You can still find ways to scoring at the rim just sheerly through second chance opportunities. And they have three rebounders ranked nationally. This is the top 500 in total rebounding. It's not just Tugler and Juwan Roberts, but Malik Wilson shockingly ranks inside there. So that is another stat that just works in Houston's favor. And Juwan Roberts was actually 4 of 11 from two against Duke. It was a tough matchup for him, but yeah, this team will kick it inside instead of shooting as many threes. Their three-point shooting has honestly bailed them out a couple times. But as Florida comes in, the matchup here, they're 15th in total defense, 21st inside, 5th on the perimeter. This defense is worse than Duke's overall. They're a little better defending the perimeter statistically, but I still think the length for Duke posed a larger problem for Houston than what Florida's going to trot on the court. You don't have that size advantage at guard that Duke posed, playing 6'6" guards across the board. Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Will Richard, these players are sized similarly to Houston, and at some positions I would give Houston the advantage. The difference in effective height comes sheerly at the forward position. When Florida's on offense, this team is 38th in effective field goal percent, 29th in 2-point percent, 68th in 3-point percent. They trail Houston in just pure shooting from beyond the arc. You have Walter Clayton leading the way at 39.2%, which is, he's had an awesome tournament. He's above that in the NCAA tournament. But on the year, he's only at 39%, which might surprise some people that didn't watch college basketball throughout the course of the season. But if you're just ranking like the 6 guards in this matchup, he's the 4th best perimeter shooter statistically when you factor in everyone on Houston. Then you have Elijah Martin at 35.5%, Will Richard at 35.2%, even Aberdeen's at 35.3%. So you have capable shooters everywhere. They just, every single one of them trail a Houston guard. And this team can stretch the floor. Alex Condon and Thomas Hawk are pretty decent shooting threes, 33.5% and 34.5%. They don't shoot a lot of them, but they can take you out on the perimeter. The problem with that is Houston, their forwards can guard on the perimeter. We saw Juwan Roberts manning up Cooper Flagg from half court at the end of the game. I knew he was a good defender. I didn't know that he had that in his bag. We're talking about the potential #1 overall pick that he just put absolute clamps on. Houston's the #1 total defense in the country. They're 5th inside, 15th on the perimeter. Nothing comes easy against this team. They have 2 of the best statistical defenders in the entire country. Joseph Tugler provides elite rim protection. Juwan Roberts apparently can man up players like Cooper Flagg from half court, which is absolutely incredible. And we've seen, honestly, more issues with Florida on defense, especially in pick and rolls and getting their bigs in space. So I would give the defensive edge to Houston across the board as well. On offense, I think it really just comes down to what they choose to do. If you have a lot of inefficiency inside from Roberts and Tugler, you could argue Florida's the better offense, but I think you have a more balanced attack on the Houston side. On the periphery, turnovers could be a problem for Florida. This team was 67th in turnovers committed in the regular season, and it's increasingly become a problem in the tournament, which perhaps is just facing elite teams. They had 17 against Maryland. They just had 16 against Auburn. Houston is 23rd in turnovers forced. This is going to be a problem for Florida if they can't figure this out. And then on the other side, Florida never forces turnovers. They're 197th in turnovers forced. Houston's 19th in turnovers committed. This matchup severely favors Houston. Fouls, this could be an issue, which is weird because in the regular season, Florida was not a team that generated a lot of fouls. They're 185th in fouls generated and 169th in turnovers committed. Both of these teams do commit a fair amount of fouls. That is the luxury of being as deep as both of these teams are. Houston has 3 forwards. Florida has 4 that they're comfortable playing. Both of these teams have 3 to 4 guards, 5 in the case of Houston at times with Malik Wilson and Arsenault. So the depth helps them play aggressively. But you look at fouls generated, it's actually Houston that generates a bit more than Florida. It's 140 to 185. So when you look at Florida's body of work in the tournament and see how often they've been bailed out by free throws and how well they've had to shoot from the line to get some of these wins, it scares me a little bit in a matchup like this. Basically, you have now a 5-game sample of Florida doing some things that they hadn't consistently done in the regular season. So I'm almost just watching the timer and seeing when is this going to run out for them. I'm not sure that it will, but it's at least a concern I have. If this does turn into a free throw match, because both teams will foul a fair amount, Houston outranks the Gators 112 to 195 on the free throw line. That's just ranking of their free throw percentage. Mathematically, we actually make this Houston about a 0.7 favorite in this game, 71.4 to 70.7. And you can take them at plus money if you want to get them on the money line. You can find them at plus 1.5. You might have to lay a little juice on that. Or if you prefer just taking a +1 at minus 110 or even money, I think that is completely fine. I laid a plus 1.5 with Houston in this game, and I'm perfectly fine with that number. As we move forward throughout the day, we're recording this in the afternoon on Sunday. If you're watching this on Monday, I think there is a better chance that Houston takes money than Florida, but that is just my intuition. But on that, I think the best time to take it is now if you want to back a Houston side. We'll have more on Twitter and in the Discord in the prop section if you were interested, and we will, of course, be doing college football full speed from here on out. But thank you again if you've supported. Good luck. We will see you guys again soon.